This video is all about how by choosing to live courageously, you can have a much bigger, more successful, more awesome life. It's really that simple. I am Brent Phillips. I am the founder and creator of the awakening dynamic system of energy healing and higher consciousness. And we're here today with video number 5 of 10 in our series on prerequisites to higher consciousness. And basically, I created this series because I learned so much from my late mentor, Carl, and I have his unpublished articles that I'm not allowed to give out to the general public. That was part of our agreement. But I can talk about the content in these videos, and that's what I'm here to do, to give you the densest, most awesome, life-changing teachings from one of the greatest masters that's ever walked the earth. And our focus on this video is living courageously. Basically, to live courageously means making a choice based on what you want rather than what you don't want. That, to put it simply, most of us live our lives trying to not lose rather than trying to win. As after all, there's so many terrible things that happen in the world. Poverty, homelessness, hunger, crime, pain, abuse, slavery, war, we could go on and on. And because we're so afraid of all these things that might happen, we tend to make very limiting choices that keep our lives very small, but within our comfort zone. And comfort zone just means what we're familiar with. It doesn't actually mean you like it. It just means it's very familiar. So to someone that's always been poor, being poor is in their comfort zone. They know how to do it. It's very familiar. Being wealthy, managing your money, dealing with lawyers and accountants and taxes, that can be a little scary. That's out of your comfort zone. So what does it mean to live courageously? Well, it's pretty simple. If we look at the most basic level of the cells that make up our bodies, the cells have this interesting characteristic that a cell can either be in a growth state or it can be in a protection state. It can't do both at once. It's kind of like your car can either be in drive or it can be in reverse. You can't be in drive and reverse at the same time. That doesn't make any sense, now does it? So if you're in drive, you go forward. If you're in reverse, you go backwards. Cells are the same. Sometimes they're in protection mode. That's important. If you're under stress, if you're under attack, you need to be in protection mode. If you're a boxer and you go to box, you don't just stand there and let the other guy hit you. You get knocked out. You put your arms up, you protect yourself. So being protected is important. But the other state a cell can be in is a growth state. That's where it repairs, where it heals, where it gets stronger, where it divides. And in order for the human body to be healthy, there needs to be a balance of the two. Some amount of protection, some amount of growth. We see this with bodybuilders and athletes that go to the gym. If you want to build strong muscles, you don't spend 8 hours a day at the gym lifting weights. That will have the opposite effect. That will make you weaker. It's called overtraining. What you do is you exercise for a short time, maybe an hour, then you give your body a few days to recover. Then you do another exercise, then recover. So you create a stimulus, then you heal and grow from it. And our bodies, our cells, our entire lives work in the same way. The human nervous system, again, exactly the same. We have what we call the sympathetic nervous system or fight and flight. That's your protection state. So if you're a human walking on the savannah in Africa and you see a tiger, your sympathetic nervous system goes nuts. Why? You need to be in protection state. Blood floods your muscles. You become more alert. You start breathing harder. You get stronger. That's the protection state. But you can't stay there all the time because it's very stressful on the body to be in that state. It has to be balanced by the growth state. So when we're sleeping, when we're relaxed, when we're meditating, that's when our bodies grow and heal. And in order to have an optimal life and health and make a lot of money, we have to mix the two. There has to be some amount of growth, some amount of protection. It's what's called homeostasis or balance of the body. The trouble is this. Most of us are constantly making fear choices and keeping our lives in the protection state. Why? We're terrified of all the things that might happen. We're afraid of losing our job or getting sick or dying or losing a loved one. Of course we are. And the fear gets so big, it keeps us in the stress state all the time. One of the things that Carl used to say, when people would ask him, hey, Carl, what's the difference between highly wealthy, successful people and everyone else? Great question. This is what he would say. The biggest difference he saw was that people that were highly successful and wealthy would always do what needed to be done, no matter how much they were afraid of it, no matter how much resistance they felt. In other words, they did what had to be done without a lot of judgment or worry about if they liked it or not. Most of us wouldn't do that. Because again, most of us are playing it safe. Most of us play to not lose rather than playing to win. The trouble is, it doesn't work. Playing to not lose causes you to lose. We can look at this metaphysically, which is pretty simple. When you're terrified of losing, you're in resistance to it. You're like, oh God, I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. What the universe hears through the law of attraction is, I want this to happen. So if you're constantly worried about losing your job, what's going to happen? You're going to lose your job. You manifested it. Of course, there's always a concern it might happen, but that's what happens to us. We get stuck in the fear state. Oh God, I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to be alone. So we settle. We stay in the comfort zone. We don't take risks. What Carl taught was that people that are very wealthy and successful, of course they fail, but they're not afraid of the failure. They just see it as that's the ladder they have to climb to find success. There is a saying, maybe you've heard it. It goes something like this. The average millionaire has gone bankrupt 2.5 times. You probably heard something like that. Now, I have no idea the exact data it's based on. I don't know if that's exactly factually true, but the concept is powerful and true for sure. What it's saying is this. If you're terrified of failing, of losing money, of going bankrupt, you're almost never going to have a big success. Why? You're focusing on the failure. And it's going to happen over and over. People that are very wealthy and successful, of course they fail. But you talk to almost any really wealthy, successful person, they often had years, sometimes decades of setbacks and failures before they finally got things to click. But the important thing is they were resilient. A simple example, let's say you're a guy and you want to get a date. If you're afraid of being rejected, you're not going to go very far. You might ask out a woman or two. If they say no, you're going to be crushed and not want to do it again. Too painful. That's how most of us are. The guys that get lots of dates are fearless about it. They'll be rejected as many times as they need to. It's not a big deal. Same thing with highly successful, wealthy people. They're not worried about how long it takes or how many times they fail. Of course they want to succeed out of the gate. Everyone does. But that's not how it works. Just like the first person that asks you on a date is not necessarily the one you're going to be married to for the rest of your life. I mean, maybe you get lucky, but usually not, right? Usually not. Usually you date multiple people before you decide this is the one for me. And so back to the teaching. Here's what I want you to do. Start paying attention to what kind of choices are you making in your life? Are you making fear-motivated choices where you're doing things because you're terrified of what might happen if you don't? Or are you making courageous choices, going directly after what you want? This is really important. Why? If you want to be successful, if you wish to live in a higher consciousness, we got to let go of the fear choices. The simple explanation in the metaphysics, which you don't need to understand, but if you're nerdy like me, you'll appreciate this, is resistance. That if you take a job because you're terrified of being broke, guess where you're putting your energy? Into being broke. If you decide to settle for marrying someone that isn't quite right for you because you're terrified of being alone, or you need the financial support, or some other thing they bring to you, that's probably going to be a disaster because it's what's called an NLP, away from motivation. You're doing something to get away from something you don't like. And to help you understand this, I'm going to give you a real life experience that I had. This was a seminar I went to. This was a long time ago, like 2003, 2004, right when the whole law of attraction, The Secret, what the bleep did we know, when it was just getting started, exciting time. And I remember the seminar leader came out and he brought 10 people up on the stage. And he asked all of them, why do you want to make more money? Why are you here? Why do you want all this money? What are you going to do with it? And it was so interesting. What I remember is this. 9 of the 10 people gave answers like, oh my gosh, I hate my job. I've got a long drive. It's awful. I want a lot of money so I can quit my job. Okay. Someone else said, oh my God, I'm living with my parents and my mom's such a nightmare. And, I need the money because I want to get my own place to get away from my parents. Things like that. Do you see the away from motivation? Those are fear choices. I want money to get away from this thing I don't like. That's a fear choice. That'll keep you stuck. Of the 10 people, only one of them gave the opposite answer, the courage. And I remember it was a woman who said, oh, the reason I'm here, the reason I want all this money is it's been my dream to open up a no-kill animal healing center and sanctuary. So we will take in discarded pets, animals found on the street, try to care for them and find them homes. And I remember the seminar leader smiled. Basically, out of those 10 people, only one was making a courage choice. The woman that said, I want to open an animal healing sanctuary because that's what I want to do. That's a choice of courage. Everyone else was making a fear choice. I want to get away from my job. I want to get away from my parents. I want to get away from my crappy apartment. I want to get away from my husband, whatever it is. So pay attention. You need to slowly work to reprogram yourself to make courage choices rather than fear. Now, depending on your background and all the things you've been through, you may need to do some subconscious clearing to clear some traumas, to release some PTSD and other blockages in that hose. And I got lots of techniques for that. Not going to bore you with all the details here, but now I know hundreds of different ways to clear traumas and get you clear. But at the end of the day, you got to make the love choices. You got to make the courage choices. That is your prerequisite to higher growth, to personal transformation, to making more money, and having a generally amazing life. So if you like this video, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, please share with your friends. If you want to learn a little more about me, maybe book a session, join one of my events, or get a huge discount on my 30 Days to Awakening program, check out the links in the description. And I'll be back very soon with video number 6 in this series, Prerequisites to Higher Consciousness. Until then, please take care and namaste.